Welcome to the Growth, Grace, and Prosperity Podcast. Join Stewart Heath for down-to-earth conversations with top professionals, entrepreneurs, and leaders who have a story to tell. Let's get rolling.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Growth, Grace, and Prosperity Podcast. Appreciate the entire audience. And our guest today is Al Rogers, a very successful businessman and an entrepreneur in his own right, a friend of mine. And he's going to share with us some of the learnings he's had over his career. Al, thank you for being here.
Glad to be here. Thank you, Stewart.
Hey, Al, when you think back on your career, and neither one of us are young chickens at this point, you've had a very successful career. When you think back, what moments would you say, using a sports analogy, were game changers for you in your career?
It's a good question. Maybe speaking of game changers, I was able to get in Vanderbilt somehow. Some people say through the side door. I probably would say through the back door. But that really put me in a position to have something that not everyone did, and that was an education from a top shelf school. It was very competitive. It was extremely challenging, and early on, that was really something that I was able to take with me and always have it, is my education. Wherever you go, whatever you do, I think if you do it well, that really lays the foundation for what comes next. I got to go to grad school. It was very difficult. Again, I was not top of the class. In fact, probably many people much smarter than me could have and should have been sitting in the seats that I was sitting in, but I worked hard. I walked on the football team, so that was something else that was, quite a challenge. Playing against Division I athletes with average skill, but a lot of heart. Really, I think laid the foundation for, showing up early, staying late, doing the things that you had to do to be successful in a very competitive environment. So competition, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's on the football field or the rugby field, or in business, I think, makes you sharper, makes you try harder, makes you be better prepared, makes you really put you in a position where you feel like you got to succeed, and if you're going to do something, you want to win.
That's great. I was just reading an article last week about, strategy is important, but real winners are the ones that execute. And that's kind of what you're talking about, the ones that put in the effort to do things right. So everybody hits bumps in the road. Many of us hit multiple bumps in the road over our career. Is there one that you can share that how you navigated through it to get to the other side?
Yeah. I guess I'll just have to pick which bump in the road you might be most interested in, because anyone that tells you that they hadn't hit a bump in a road, my goodness, you could pick every year there's a bump. Certainly every decade there's a fairly big bump. Sometimes we end up in the guardrail and have to patch things up and get going, but what I've seen every time that I've had a bump, it's made me stronger. If it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. And usually we can get through it, if we have a good support staff, a good support group, whether it's employees or a wife or a family that can help you get through the tough times. We had a very successful sale of a bank when I was in my early 30s. We sold a bank to a group called Colonial Bank, which, about 10 years after they bought us, did not do so well in the Great Recession. along the way, there were a few bumps in that transaction. It was something that I didn't think that I would ever get to be a part of. Selling a bank, I think we sold it for $85 million in I guess it was 2001, actually. So it's a lot of money, especially for a young group of executives. And one of the members of the team, actually the former chairman of the board, got crossways with a few of us because after you sell a bank, it's usually the acquiring bank or whoever acquires you gets to make most of the rules. So when those rules were different than his perception, he came down hard on many of us. I do not like litigation. The litigation is something you just have a trouble shaking off at the end of the day. So we had some litigation. In those cases, you just got to keep your head down, keep your feet moving, find people you trust, surround yourself with people that love and care about you, and in the end, things work themselves out. Uh, but when you're going through a battle like that, it can be difficult on you and your family and a lot of what you built. So litigation is scary, but on the other side, it makes you stronger, and you get through it.
That litigation will change you forever, no matter what side you're on, really.
So expensive and so
Nobody wins.
on your emotional state because you just you can't control it.
Yeah. Nobody wins but the lawyer. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. You're in business for 30, 40 years, and there's going to be ups and downs. And talking about being in business that long, there's new things that come along. There's new technologies, new ideas. How do you tackle learning new things?
Well, as long as it took me to get my camera turned on today, I'm probably not very well. You just do it, right? You roll your sleeves up. Usually I find somebody a lot younger than me and they help me. But you got to embrace technology. Taking my mother about 3 or 4 years ago to the ATM and showing her how to get money out of it. So she said she had never done it. She didn't have a debit card. She didn't need one that, of course, she could tell. So we went to the machine, got her a passcode, and voila, there's $20. So she was pretty impressed. And I laughed at that because that sounds kind of silly, but there are many things like that have evolved that I avoided, just because it's easier to do the things that you're used to doing. And it's incredibly productive. Most of this innovation, um, if you embrace it, jump on it, tackle it, invest time in it, it's fairly self-explanatory. But us old guys don't like to change our habits, so you got to embrace it. But I would say I haven't done that as well as I used to. So I think the older we get, the more crotchety we get and stuck in our ways. But I definitely embrace technology and change.
I definitely lean towards the idea that, well, it's inefficient to change our methods. We're doing good over here, but eventually technology will run over us.
And then when you do it, it's amazing how productive it can be. I was listening this morning about the new term AI and what it can do to help us become more productive. To put it in perspective, you and I probably learned Lotus 1-2-3. If you remember, that was the original.
Slash file save.
Yeah. Hit F2, and that was your edit feature.
Yeah.
But now, the macros and the different tools that you can use to create robust spreadsheets without spending 4 or 5 weeks banging on it. It's pretty amazing. So, the technology that has come about since our careers have been going is amazing how much more productive we can be.
Yeah, every year I always say, I'm a CPA, I've got to get continuing education credits. And every year I'm going to go take an advanced Excel class. And I do many times, and I'm just lost. And I'm pretty good at Excel, but these features that have come out in the last 15 years, I'm just like, they just go right past me. And truth be told, I got a lot of things on my mind, and it's hard to focus on a piece of technology that I don't know how I'm going to use tomorrow. Just to learn it. That's hard to do.
So maybe AI or an NVIDIA chip will make it easy for you.
If I can just speak to it, that'd be great. So, you've been very successful, and in the realm of financial health, which probably a lot of the viewers will be interested in. Outside of your main companies that you started, which I guess have primarily been banks, how have you pursued managing your personal wealth? In what have you been pursuing? Where you put your money, and what kinds of things? We're not asking for dollar amounts, but where are you putting the money that you've earned in your success?
Well, the older I get, and as the economy has changed, that has changed as well. I was able to build up a net worth in the banking business, owning bank stocks. Bank stocks used to trade for 4 times book, for instance. Today, they often trade at less than book. And that's currently a result of the yield curve and the cost of deposits and competition and all of these other things. But while I was successful with concentrated positions, the older I got, and probably the wiser I got, I began to diversify. I've always loved real estate because you can touch it, feel it, go see it, and you can leverage it. You can magnify your returns. You can also blow up the deal very quickly with leverage. So, leverage, I think, is the most powerful financial tool there is. I've used leverage to, that you start out buying a house or a condominium or a small apartment complex, and if you can kind of harness the power of leverage in good times and know when to get out and when to stay in, that will amplify returns significantly. Too much leverage has brought down some very smart people, and it can be very scary. So it's something I've used with real estate to try to generate both cash flow and build wealth. Marketable securities is another leg of what I think would be important, and that have been banking stocks, which is now in my world, diversified dividend growth strategy. And then I do limited partnerships, knowing full well that limited partnerships, when you're investing in them, they lack liquidity, and if you need the money, that's not a good place to put yours. So I really look at 3 basic diversified sources of kind of wealth and places to put and invest my money. Marketable securities, real estate that I control or own, and then limited partnerships where other people have great ideas, spending their time and their days trying to execute a plan that will significantly grow that particular investment.
Thank you, Al. I hope all the listeners are taking note of. There was some rich advice in that answer, and most of the entrepreneurs that are watching this take note, because most of us have concentrated positions in either public or private securities, and you can't start diversifying away from that too soon, because it's never good to have all your eggs in one basket. Sometimes that's all we got if we start a company that's successful, but you want to start liquidating and diversifying away from that. So thank you, Al.
The last thing I would add, just because I can't help but say it, is I often would, when we would sell a bank, I would have a concentrated position. If I own that stock in my IRA, which I often did, I would immediately sell it because there was no tax consequence. I would often let greed and the lack of wanting to pay taxes get in the way of diversifying a position that I could not really control anymore. If you go from a small community bank to a large regional bank, you can tear it up and be the greatest acquisition and the greatest employee that there ever was, but whatever that company and the New York Stock Exchange investors decide is the way that that stock is often going to go. So some of the challenges and the mistakes I had were my lack of willingness to go ahead and pay taxes and move on. I lost a lot of sleep with concentrated positions because I was too greedy to go ahead and pay the taxes and move on. We live and learn, and eventually we get there, but often the tail wags the dog. And in that case, not wanting to pay the taxes, sometimes could hurt me.
Yeah. Good point. A lot of people have that fear, but as one of my mentors early in my public accounting career would say, the tax rate's not 100%. So, sometimes people are motivated to do dumb things just to save on taxes. And it's a bitter pill to take, especially when you're dealing with really big dollars. So thank you for that. So wrapping up now, one more question. If there was any advice you would give somebody, let's just say younger than us, who want to be, successful, follow your lead, what would that advice be?
Well, some of the obvious ones are, show up early and stay late. That's pretty easy. Don't embrace this work from home routine. That's a personal pet peeve of mine. My son the other day asked me, he was, Dad, did you shave every single morning before work? I said, yep. And I put on a tie and I went to work and I sat in my cube and I banged on the computer and the phone until it was time to go home. So a lot of these, just this younger generation did not grow up the way we did. And that's hitting the sled, going to work, punching the clock, whatever you want to call it. It's important. The cultural aspects that you learn, the moments around the water cooler, the going to lunches with executives that you might not have had a chance to do that, going out on calls, those are all important things. But the other thing I often shake my head is when a young associate comes and they don't have anything to take notes with. I'm a big note taker. I have a book, and people laugh at me because I always have it, and my notes are kind of legendary because I'll take a picture and I'll hand it to an analyst and tell them to turn it into a loan application. But for me to listen and reflect and to be accurate, I have to take notes. Some people are smarter than me and can do it without it. I even tell people, I don't care how smart you are, take a notebook with you, look interested, be engaged, repeat what you think you heard, and then put your head down and get after it. Find people you trust, find a mentor that can give you some advice, and spend time with them and ask for honest, critical feedback, not just all the good stuff that you're doing. That's some advice. I'll tell that to my kids tonight.
I wish I could get you to talk to
Yeah.
some of my kids right now, especially that education piece you started with. We do have a problem with this generation, just say 18 to 24 right now, and seems to me, the vast majority of them have lost motivation. But that's a topic for another podcast.
That's right.
Al, thank you so much for your time. The theme, I would say, is what I'm gathering from you is effort and execution will lead to success. I can't agree more. That's just what it's about. You can have the greatest ideas in the world, but if you don't put effort behind them, it's for naught. So, everybody, I hope that you'll tune in and watch this one and come back for another one. Al Rogers, thank you so much for joining us. It's been very, very rich, and I appreciate it, my friend. So take care.
Appreciate your friendship.
Thanks for tuning in to the Growth, Grace, and Prosperity podcast. If you'd like to be a guest, visit growthgraceprosperity.com/guest. We'd love to hear your story.